Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. This week, Prime Factors, Voyager. We're back on Voyager. Prime Factors. Hey, 10's not a prime number, but guess what? It's the 10th anniversary of the It's All Been Done radio hour. You can go check it out live at Boxland this weekend, this Saturday, or you can check it out Twitch, Facebook, some other places too. You know what? While you're at it, become a Patreon member. You'll get all this info. You might already be getting it, but it's an even better way. And you get all the bonus material. Patreon.com/IABD. Your prime factor of being here is probably because we're talking about Star Trek, and we're talking about Prime Factors, Voyager, and It's All Been Tracked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tracked Before. Some of your regular Voyager hosts are here.
This is Steven.
Hey, I'm Shane.
And Jimmy-Jerome. Yeah, Shane's back with us, not pre-recorded clips this time, so it's exciting to have him for the full episode. No idea where Keith is. I think he still lost a few quadrants over, so maybe we'll find him at some point. Maybe he's trying to make his way back. I don't know.
Maybe he found a way to get the Sicarians to help him.
Maybe. I mean, if he did, he'd already be here, right?
You're right.
So to reference what Steven was saying, we're here to talk about the Voyager episode Prime Factors. First impressions.
What a moral dilemma.
Yeah. Ooh. Like some of the best Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I wrote it down early on that this could go justice directions because it was a hospitality planet, right? Is that what? But then I thought it definitely, and I read something that didn't use the same terminology, but said, this one I thought was the heaviest emotionally and otherwise as far as the Gilligan's Island aspect of it, of like, oh, we're going to get close to home. And then like, oh, nope, no, it didn't work. Shoot. And then all the interpersonal things at the end, I thought were really good too. So I for a generic title called Prime Factors, I ended up liking it actually quite a bit. So
Shane.
Oh,
or
yeah.
Was that your whole first impression?
I mean, kind of. Just I have a lot of specifics, but yeah, just overall, I mean, yeah, really a little bit of science, but a lot of thought, provoking things about, what do you hold your principles, or do you hold your responsibility to the people? I mean, this is a heavy on Janeway.
Absolutely, and so I also thought the title was lame. But the episode was good. And the second half of the episode, much better than the first half. Like, the deeper you got into the problem, the more interesting the episode became. And yes, Janeway had great moments, but so did Torres, so did Tuvok. Like, there was some real character stuff. And that final scene, I'm not going to get ahead of it right now, other than to say that may be one of my favorite Voyager scenes, like, period. Because it's just 3 great characters dealing with some really heavy stuff and making different choices about it and wrestling with it. And I didn't think one was right and one was wrong. Like, it was very much like oof. Yeah, this was some good heavy stuff. And I'd forgotten that's where this episode was going. So like halfway through, I'm like, oh my God, I'm surprised. And I'm really into this now. Very much enjoyed the episode. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Jimmy, because about halfway through, I thought, oh, this is just a planet of the week. Mm-hmm. Well, I was doing what's the deal with these guys? What's going to be the problem? And it was much more interesting. There were several issues, as you said, and then they kept adding on. So
yeah. The Delaney sisters.
Always. And now we found out that apparently they stole them away from somebody. Which, just keep adding to that mythology, the Delaney sisters. I know we eventually get to see them. But I don't remember what they look like. Like, it's just hearing about them that's exciting.
This is giving it away early, but my alternate episode is what really happened with those guys and the Delaney sisters. Because they weren't getting to what actually happened. But I was like, but it did get me thinking, and I probably wouldn't surprise me if I brought this up before, but with the limited amount of people stuck in space for that long and you got the 2 different groups, so they're seeing the same people, but they've kind of just still getting to know each other. It's got to be like a bacchanalia up there. It's got to be kind of just like insane,
I mean, monogamy should hopefully not be adhered to too strictly when you have such a limited pool to draw.
Not with the holodeck,
Yeah,
that's true.
I thought the funny line here, and was actually along those lines. Kim says, the holodeck, you got to be kidding. that lasted all 15 minutes. I was like, you probably shouldn't be bragging. You lasted that long, the holodeck. But anyway.
Yeah. So there was a thing with Torres in that scene, though, that struck me a little weird. And I couldn't help but think, listening to Garrett Wong talk about he's got a podcast with Robert Duncan McNeil, Kim in Paris. He was talking about recently on one of his these early episodes, that he thought originally the intention was that they wanted to pair him and Torres as a romantic couple, which you kind of get from the pilot, that they might be setting them up. And I did feel like that was kind of in that scene where the way she reacted to Harry Kim and stuff, it maybe felt like that's what the writers are going for, even though I'm pretty sure that gets dropped pretty quickly. It's just, it felt weird to me. And maybe it's because I know Kim and Torres well enough that I can't imagine them together. But
It seemed like a match.
No, they're not.
Early on with an ensemble show like that, you should test your like pairings and stuff, but no, don't go romance off the bat. That's weird.
I do think this show does have its Monica Chandler relationship, the unexpected pairing that even surprised the writers, that when they finally put the two characters together, it works so well, in my opinion.
We'll see.
But we'll have to see if Steven agrees when we get there.
It's Neelix and Chakotay,
right? So you did watch the show.
Neelix and Chakotay. I mean, we call them Nitote, so you make up your mind.
I call them Chilix.
Wait, Chacolix. Chacolix would have been so much better. I don't know why I was. So Janeway's watching the crew, and she's so pleased by this little interaction. I'm like, is she a voyeur? Because they're all talking about dating and stuff. And she's like, ooh, I like this. I'm into this.
Well, and
I
also
kind of liked it because it was like proud mama watching the kids.
It almost felt like this episode should have come earlier because, like, I don't know, because we never really saw much strife other than like episode 2 between the two crews. So for her to be like, oh, the crews are finally getting along, like, what do you mean finally? They've been getting along fine, at least on screen.
They have, unfortunately, too fine, in my opinion.
Yeah. I did appreciate the when they picked up the distress call and he answered. I was like, as soon as he said his line, he's like, I'm not in distress, but you are. Is that a threat, sir? Because that's a badass threat.
It felt like it. You're referring to, I believe his name is Garethel Laban, played by Ronald Gutman, who's very familiar looking, best known for The Hunt for Red October, 27 Dresses, 20 episodes of All My Children, and 1 episode of Mad Men. He has 138 credits. Immediately recognizable. I guess I forgot he did Star Trek, though.
Oh, wow.
He doesn't feel like a Star Trek guy to me.
He reminded me of, and I was sure I saw him even more things than he did. It reminded me of the captain running the insane asylum in, I'm struggling with the title, a TOS episode where the captain's taking over the insane asylum. Yvonne Craig's there, I know that. God, I can't believe I'm blanking on a. Anyway, I thought it was him for a minute, but it wasn't. But
well, just a familiar face, but it was weird. He's really hitting on Janeway hard, like right away. And I was getting your Justice vibe, Steven, because I had similar thoughts at that point. There was also another Next Gen episode where Troy like fell in love with some guy on a planet that was like a community leader. Same thing.
Whom Gods Destroy is the one I couldn't come up with. Whom Gods Destroy.
Okay. I'm not even going to try to look up the Next Gen episodes that we're talking about. But it's a trope from Star Trek. I'm just glad this episode took a turn and didn't stay with that trope. Because if it had all been about romance for Janeway, that would have been dumb.
But she was receptive to it, which was kind of surprising. It's the first time we really saw her kind of a little bit let her guard down in that manner.
I mean, and there was the episode where she visited Tom Paris's holodeck program.
That's true.
And that one guy was pretty lecherous and she was charmed by him.
Yeah.
So we've seen a little bit of that Janeway has a sexual side.
Yeah.
And she's got to be practical and understand she's not getting home to Mark anytime soon. Kim immediately beams down and forgets all about that poor Delaney sister experience because he hooks up with the weather girl. That's what I'm calling her because she does the thing with the weather. But that actress, the character's Udana or something. Actress Yvonne Sohor, best known for The Young Riders television series from 1989 to 92. And this one episode of Voyager, as well as a couple other guest spots. She only has 13 credits, but after 2000, because that's where it drops off, she popped up for one episode of Lodge 49 in 2018. Oddly enough. So I don't know. Don't know what her story is, but I guess she was a stage actress, and she did die in 2018, so she won't have any other appearances. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that was man. You had it, Harry. You had it, and then you just focused on the wrong thing. It's not going anywhere. Just come on.
There's very
Tom
few young
wouldn't have
men of
let
his
that.
age that would prioritize the science thing he found over the sex. Yeah, I agree. Sleep with her first, or whatever you're gonna do. It doesn't have to be sleeping with, but
She was interested. She was the one who,
mm-hmm.
she was the one who got science blocked.
Yeah. I mean, I immediately bumped on that scene too, that there were two suns in the sky, and that
well, you know where they got that. I mean,
but the thing was, they said, oh, it was dark when they got there, right? And then they said, oh, the sun's rising, and you get like a little bit of light, and then you see the suns in like the next shot, and they're well up from the horizon, and they're just sitting there. Like if they were moving that fast, they'd still be moving in the picture. And so I was very confused about how poorly they did the suns coming up in terms of a logistical perspective. It was really bad.
Shame on heavy green screen there. But...
Shame on them. At least, okay, so what if it's a green screen? Then put the suns right at the horizon. Don't put them up in the sky and not moving. Right? Like there are ways that could have worked with a static shot, because it's going to be a static shot.
I love that that's your your gripe.
I have plenty of them, but it really bothered me and took me out of the scene. So I guess maybe I'm more like Harry than I'm willing to.
I guess.
Just to back up a little bit, back to our guy, Gath. He seems like he's dressed like Hugh Hefner to me in the 70s or 80s or 90s for that matter, which I appreciated. And then when they started, they almost kiss and all that stuff, I was like, all right, maybe we are getting to justice. Maybe even more than justice. Maybe I wrote down Planet Horny. But beyond his bathrobe, which I enjoyed, what did you guys think of the headgear that I was trying to explain to Keith, who was never here, but was here?
I liked it. It looked like light and just like a tasteful decoration without it making the actors feel like they're wearing 1,000,000 pounds on them.
Yeah, I couldn't tell at first if it was wired into the head or just accoutrement, which turns out that's what it was.
I think it was a hair decoration.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. I'd wear that. It's very old school Halo,
Yeah,
medieval painting.
My one other fashion note was, of course, Janeway, great casual wear once again. I think it was Starfleet official casual wear, wasn't it? Maybe not. Maybe I'm mixing my episodes. But I thought she still had her. Well, I guess she'd have her communicator with her, but I appreciated that as well.
Yeah.
So Kim was brought 40,000 light years away by his weather girl, which is halfway home, right? A little bit more than halfway home.
Yeah.
And even when they say that's limits of the range, I'm like, you could have had this succeed. So a lot of times when you're doing a story like this, it's going to be, the technology will get us all the way there. And eventually they started to talk about maybe it could. But I think the 40,000 was a lot more believable because you could have that succeed and still not get rid of the premise. Like, we made it halfway home, but we're still 30 years from home or whatever.
Wouldn't you just beam the technology 40,000 light years, so then you could go another 40,000 light years?
That's eventually where they got to. That's eventually where they got to. But as they were talking about compromises and, maybe you can use the technology to send us 40,000 years, it seemed plausible that's where they could get to. Which like I said, I like, because normally when you're watching something like this, it's all or nothing. And you're like, well, then they're not going to succeed. I know that because the show's not over. Right. Voyager was an 8-episode miniseries, and then the end. Da, 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 da.
It's like they kept dropping, just in case we get canceled moments in there.
I mean, I don't think they were any worried about that because they were using this show to launch UPN. So I think the first season, they were going to get a full season no matter what. Yeah. Maybe even 2. Just because it was a new network. They weren't beholden to the same factors that you're airing on an established network.
Yeah, because we're not even 13 episodes in yet, and that's usually the old
I think they did 17 or 18 for this first season, so yeah. I could tell you exactly how many they do instead of just guessing.
Episode 10.
They did 15. 15 in this one.
Oh, okay.
So that would be the 2-hour pilot. I was going to say the 2-hour pilot plus 13 more, but no, the 2-hour pilot plus 14 more. So they did 16 hours.
Okay.
But they were also a mid-season replacement in January. I mean, not replacement because it was launching a network.
Yeah.
But they premiered in January, so there was no way they were going to get 24 in. 16 is a very healthy half season.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Are there any remnants of the fall season anymore?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so it's still kind of a thing.
On ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, and the
okay.
CW, yes.
Oh, I guess so, yeah.
However, they do a lot more shows that don't run the full season these days.
Yeah.
And even the ones that do don't, I mean, often stop before you get to the 24 or 26 they used to do.
Is Sweeps Week still a thing? February,
That
May,
I'm
and
not sure
November,
about.
I think.
I'm less sure about that because I think less of the money comes and measurement comes directly from those ad revenues in a certain week anymore.
Yeah.
But it does still seem
Probably
like
for
they have big event
networks,
episodes in February and May, so maybe.
Yeah.
I've been out of TV reviewing a while.
Yeah,
So-
and I've been out of it. Like, I studied this in college, but now I'm like, not.
Well, now there's
Yeah.
so many factors that decide whether a show's canceled. It's beyond just the straight ratings.
Right.
Anyway, about this time of the episode, when they say you can't use our technology, my immediate thought went to the Prime Directive, and I'm glad they tied that into the
Me too.
dialogue
Mhm.
that somebody pointed out explicitly, because I'm like, if you're going to have this situation where you're on the other side of the Prime Directive and you don't bring up that comparison, I'm going to be disappointed in the writers. Which,
Yeah.
if we want to talk about the writers of this episode, this has 4 names on it, because you've got story by David R. George III and Eric A. Stillwell, teleplay by Michael Perricone and Greg Elliott. So, looking at those 4, David R. George III, this is his only IMDb credit. And Eric Stillwell, on the other hand, though, the other partner in the story by, is best known for writing, or for being an additional crew on 103 episodes of Next Gen, 28 episodes of Voyager, and the movie Star Trek Insurrection. So he was a crew person, and 41 episodes of The Dead Zone. So he was a crew person that they let write. He also pitched a story on Next Gen that was bought. It was Yesterday's Enterprise, which is one of their big iconic episodes. So, yeah. But then the actual teleplay by Michael Perricone is best known for being sound department and Camp X-Ray, Last Night's Hit and Run Tully. That's where the 200 credits for sound department, only 4 for writing. 2 Voyager episodes he's got writing on, this one and then a season 4 episode called Unforgettable, which at this moment I've completely forgotten what that's about. So, you know. And Greg Elliott, best known for being a writer on 2 episodes of Voyager, Unforgettable being his second as well. And then 12 episodes of Charmed, episode of Port Charles, a few episodes of Savannah. None of them have big, long IMDb credits, but they've done a few things. I think it's interesting you had a sound guy doing the teleplay, not just story by, but teleplay.
Good
That's
for him.
Good for him. They talk a lot in this episode about stories as currency. I dug that a lot. I wish stories could be used as currency.
You know what? I can't believe I didn't look this up, but you're right. This is around the time that Kramer sells all his stories to Peterman, and they become Peterman stories.
I remember that episode.
I feel like that was after this. It also made me think of streaming. Like, stories are a big deal. I was like, these guys foresaw streaming and people just buying, like, we're going to buy all your stories. We'll take all your stories for this device that'll let you travel 40,000 light years.
They'll just take the Voyager computer and launch their own version of Netflix. Torres, Carrie, and Seska start plotting in this episode.
Yeah.
It's an interesting pairing because obviously Torres and Carrie have had tension in the past. And it's nice to get Seska brought in. I've mentioned before, she's a pretty big reoccurring character for a few seasons.
Yeah,
so
I gotta tell you, I really like Seska in this episode. You've been hinting that she's gonna be a bigger deal, and I was like, I like her spunk. I like her style.
Yeah. She has her own plot, her own driven plot coming up that is multi episodes. So if you like Seska, don't worry, you're gonna get some more Seska.
As they were plotting,
it was kind of fun, that trio of them. It made kind of an odd grouping.
Yeah. As they were plotting, I wrote down, it's like, engineers always screwing up diplomacy. Like,
this is true.
I just can't stop tinkering with things.
I know. I thought they were gonna go get caught scanning, and ruin the trade deal. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I agree.
You could tell that this was a dangerous team because this is another Star Wars reference. Torres says, I have a bad feeling about this.
And And then Seska said it's a trap, which I thought was interesting. Obviously not. And then Carrie said, "I shot first." I don't know.
Watched the wrong version.
Oh, I watched the special edition that George
okay.
Lucas put out. I know he wasn't connected to Star Trek Voyager, but he decided he wanted to redo Voyager special effects. So Kim
he had all that Disney money. What was he gonna do?
So Kim consults with these conspirators and Tom Paris. And was anybody else just completely thrown off that Tom Paris is the one defending the rules? Seems so out of character.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe it's because he didn't have the idea. I don't know. It really felt like he'd make way more sense in this plot than, I mean, Carrie they justified with the backstory of I've got a couple little kids and whatever. Seska totally get. She's a chaos agent, whatever.
You're right.
Torres made absolute sense. But it almost should have been reversed, that it was like Paris arguing to break the rules and Kim saying, no, we have to stick by.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like he would have been, well, maybe he just wanted to stay on the planet. I mean, it was a pleasure planet.
No,
so.
this is true.
We didn't see what he was up to, but I'm sure he had a few parts.
They couldn't show that on network television in the 90s.
So Janeway starts wrestling with the decision and gets advice from Tuvok. We were told all along from the beginning that Tuvok is her most trusted confidant, and they have this history. But correct me if I'm wrong, this is really the first time we see that. Maybe a little bit of Caretaker, but like we finally get to see what their relationship looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm glad they're bringing him more to the front of the finally of stories and stuff.
And what I like about it, and this is probably major credit to Kate Mulgrew and Tim Russ, but they managed in a handful of scenes in this one episode to convey the history where it felt totally believable, that I felt, yes, I get where they are and how they relate, and that, you know, they didn't have to show us a lot to communicate that backstory. They did a really good job there.
Yep.
The magistrate doesn't want them to leave. He's very selfish. Like, they say they're all about giving other people pleasure, but Janeway had their number, that it's pleasure for them. That they get giving other people pleasure, but he gets so bored so quickly. I know people like him. It makes me sad.
I thought her speech, and I guess it's not a speech, I think it's in that conversation, but she's telling him about, well, you know, all that interests you is what's new and unexplored. After a day or two, it becomes commonplace. We prefer permanence. It felt, and this is going to be a big ding on this, even though, again, I said I did really like the episode. But that part felt very third season TOS. Felt very Kirk speech. Not that she gives it in a bad way, and not about Kate Mulgrew. Just what she had to say. It just felt like she's like, well, this is the way we do things on Earth, and it's better than what you do here. So let me tell you how good that you're wrong, and blah blah blah. So it hit me funny. And then she's like, well, I'm out of here. It wasn't a gambit. It was just like, well, yeah. So I did not care for her tone. Which sounds a lot worse.
It was a little preachy, a little
Like,
which
hey,
is Janeway. Janeway
they're
seemed too hurt and too much betrayed when she realizes he's selfish. Like, I didn't think she was that invested. I thought she was just having fun with him.
That's what I thought.
Well, and they're explorers, you know what I mean? Like, so the concept of home, like, sure, still exists, but like, they're explorers. They're scientific explorers at that. So, you know,
I mean, really, they're sailors at the end of the day. There's a home in every port.
Right, exactly. Tom knows.
So I remember at the time that I was surprised when Tuvok, not surprised that Tuvok caught the conspirators, but that he's like, I'm going to make the exchange, give it to me.
Yeah.
That really threw me at the time. And they do enough in this episode to justify it and make it make sense by the time you get to the end. But it really feels out of nowhere.
Big swing for Tuvok, especially when he hasn't really had such a major role yet. This was a big, like, defying the captain.
Even you not knowing Tuvok very well because he's had no development. Right. How did you feel about this?
I mean, I love the development. I loved it happening. So I thought it was really, I thought it was great. I mean, he's my inspiring person for the episode.
Nice.
I like him being like, I'm going to do it. And then his justification for it through logic, but also because he cares about Janeway. I thought that was just like, for my simple TOS brain, it's like, oh, that's very Spocky. That's very Spock. Like, and he got away because he was half human, but this is a way like, no, this is logic. And just because you're a Vulcan doesn't mean you can't care about people.
Well, to bring up, you say Spock, that reminds me of when Spock hijacked the ship to take Pike back to the cage planet. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely, there has been some precedence for this before, but still, very, very unexpected.
Yeah. Oh, the looks on their faces when he opened the door. It's like, oh, we're busted.
Yeah. Yes.
And I do love Carrie when he was like energized. He's like, okay, didn't even like, yep.
I know right. The other two were like frozen, and he's just like, yep, doing it. That's some white male confidence right there.
Don't have to tell me twice. Yeah.
So when they get the device back from Tuvok, apparently they've already got a plug for the device. Even the device they haven't seen or know anything about just plugs right into their engineering console.
Naturally.
That's some Trek.
It's a USB basically. It's a universal.
Yeah, it's universal. Yeah. Even if it's 75,000 light years away, it's totally universal the way these things work.
Yeah, it does suck that, I mean, obviously the show wouldn't be as long running as it was, but it sucked that, it technically only worked because of the makeup of the planet, which also explains why it was a thought I had earlier when they were like, oh yeah, many people have wanted to take have wanted this technology. And it's like, I'm surprised a more hostile race didn't come and just take it by force. Oh, well, it doesn't work anywhere else. So
yeah, that makes sense. And also that also gives us a good reason why Voyager won't try to recreate and rebuild it down the road. Right. Yeah. And you could have planned it in now that they're going to keep working on this, and then maybe that's a plant for how the series eventually ends.
And I guess it makes sense. It's kind of the Superman thing, our yellow sun, or to do a TOS one, metamorphosis, Zephyr Cochrane could only live there and be immortal there. And as soon as he left, he would die. So I feel like there's been a couple other ones where, Kai, Deep Space Nine, she's on the planet where people can't die. So yeah.
I am curious if there were any crew members who were like, can I just stay permanently? Like, I would like to stay on this pleasure. I would have been like, all right, guys, I'm out. This is good enough for me.
I mean, I don't think you had room for that in this, but if this was a streaming show or something where you had, varying running lengths and everything, you could have easily established Carrie as a character and not given him the boys at home. And then like he leaves at the end of this, like, take a character that we kind of gotten to know and have him make that decision. That would be good. And that would be impactful.
That's really good. Because I mean, there's got to be somebody who's a bachelor on that ship who's like, what am I trying to get back home for?
Pleasure. Leave me here. Stay on the pleasure planet or go back into space for 70 years with a limited crew that gets attacked every other week. Like,
Well, and to go back to
the Delaney sisters
about Janeway's speech about permanence and monogamy and blah blah blah. It's like, you know what, that works for you, but there might be somebody's like, oh, okay, you want to hang out for a week? Perfect. This planet is full of people like that. It is perfect for me.
Yep.
I'm in my prime, and then I can just leave and go 40,000 light years away whenever you want to get rid of me. So, it seems like a perfect place. I mean, depending on your age and your family connection.
Sure.
In Torres's arc, I'm glad she didn't want to cover it up. I do think, again, it's a little quick with her evolution, but Janeway put some trust in her before, and I appreciate that. That wasn't going to be a thing that she was going to, because that takes a lot of guts and character development and bravery and nobility to stand up and say, yep, we're not covering this. Carrie and Seska were all about covering it up, and Torres is like, nope. And that's why she's a main character and they aren't, right?
Well, and I mean, she's starting to take her role more seriously as chief engineer, so that's a good move. Even though it was a bad move, it was a good move to cop to it,
So we get the scene, the one in Janeway's office with Tuvok and Torres. I get why Janeway can't tell Torres, like, thank you for coming forward, but at the same time, I wanted her to so bad. I wanted to be like, yeah.
I think I thought about this too, because I get what you're saying. I think because there's no consequence, because they're such needed crew members, that the only thing that she could do to sort of punish her was to be disappointed and just let her sit with it, you know?
Yeah, and there does need to be some sort of punishment. She can't just let her off the hook entirely. That's weird, but
Disappointing mom way. I mean, Janeway. That was tough to sit through even as an audience member, because it was just like, oh man, I think we've all probably been on a side of being the one disappointing someone else. And it's just like, oh, that was even worse because it's Janeway.
yeah, but also Torres deserves the credit. She deserves the credit for coming forward and taking responsibility. I think we've seen other captains do the dress down and then say, but also, or Janeway could have, instead of letting her off the hook, she could have given the dress down and then in the dress down said, and by the way, had you not come forward and confessed, you'd be out of a job right now.
Yeah.
Like, that way you still, like, give her a little credit, but you don't have to crack the toughness. I don't know. It makes sense that she says, like, last chance, don't do it again. But I just wanted something from Janeway about appreciating or acknowledging that Torres did the right thing here. And maybe that's just because I like Torres, but
And then we get to Tuvok.
oh my God, his confession and Janeway's whatever disappointment she had in Torres is so much worse for Tuvok.
Yeah.
She shows it to Torres with Tuvok. She's just, it's almost desperate begging. Like, I'm not going to punish you, but I need you to be better than this. I need you to not do this.
The
Man,
shock.
that's a different kind of guilt trip there.
Yeah. Like, yeah, she's like felt betrayed. And it's like, but, you know, and she did kind of mention this, like, yeah, logic can explain away everything. But it's like, no, I mean, but legitimately, like, it makes sense. And I hope that, you know, she obviously appreciates what he tried to do for her, even though if it was like, you know, it leads her to be off the hook if things got back to, were it to have worked and they got back to Federation space, she'd be clear of any wrongdoing there.
But yeah, no, it's absolutely. I mean, Tuvok says you can court-martial me. I'll face the consequences. Like if we got home, I fully expect to be relieved of duty, but I still got everybody home. And you gotta give him credit. Like, yeah, sacrifice your own career to get everybody home is still worth it. Hero move. And then but then you come back to Torres does the hero move. Tuvok does the hero move. Even though Torres does participate in some less heroic things, so does Tuvok. Janeway is still a hero in this too. Like, she makes the right ethical decision, and you want her to put the ethics aside a little bit for the sake of her crew, but you can't fault her for not. And
yeah,
her whole argument of we have to hang on to something, we have to hang on to our Starfleet ideals. That scene, like I said, I haven't seen all of Voyager. I don't remember every episode clearly, but this scene stands out to me as a scene I'm going to remember as one of the great scenes of the show, or one of the great scenes of Star Trek in general. First scene of Voyager, I could say that about for sure. But when I think of my favorite DS9 or Next Gen scenes, this is in that vein. Or original series, but original series had some different flavors too that don't make it into the later spinoffs, but yeah. So the Tuvok's great line in that exchange was, "My logic was not an error, but I was." Chef's kiss. Like, beautiful writing. Got to give credit to all these writers. The only other guest star we didn't talk about was Andrew Hill Newman, who played Jarrett Attell. That was like the vice deputy, whatever, that sold him the library stuff.
Yeah.
He's best known for Mannequin, Fools Rush In, Lethal Weapon 3, and The Troop, 2 episodes of The Troop as a writer. Interestingly, he has 9 producer credits, 59 acting credits, and 15 writer credits. So his last acting credit was 2 years ago on How I Met Your Father. Interestingly enough, he did a 1-episode part on that. A lot of guest spots on like Major Dad, Hanging with Mr. Cooper, Night Court, old Night Court, not new Night Court. So, but this is his only Trek credit. In his writing, he wrote for iCarly, and he wrote for he wrote for the Amanda Show. Was that Amanda Bynes? 99 to 2002.
so.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
Amanda Bynes' show. So, interestingly, he also has one writing credit for additional sketches for Saturday Night Live in 1997. Just one episode.
Ooh, interesting.
Don't know. It looks like it was a Matthew Perry hosted episode in 97.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
And
interesting resume from this guy.
He's the one that on the Wikipedia page did not have a Wikipedia page on this episode.
Okay.
Wow.
So my alternate episode here was they get home and then go back. I was thinking Rescue from Gilligan's Island. I don't know if you've ever seen that made for TV
Yes.
movie that I
Mhm.
picked up for like $3 on DVD in a dollar bin, where basically there's a hurricane coming, and to survive it, all the castaways strap themselves to a hut, and somehow their hut doesn't get destroyed by the hurricane, and it
Right.
goes out to sea,
Mhm.
floating on the water,
Yep.
and they get rescued, and they spend the movie back on mainland, and then on the 1 year anniversary of the rescue, they go out on the SS Minnow 2 and crash wreck on the same island.
Yep.
Oh god.
So I kind of felt like that would have been a fun thing to do with Voyager, because I'm sure that movie was already out by now.
Oh yeah.
If this was a little bit more of a comedy show. Rescue from Voyager Island, or from Delta Quadrant Island, I don't know. Either of you have anything else before we get to the rankings?
I have a note, but I don't understand what I'm talking about. So
Okay.
it was, for some reason, I thought that there was an Alien Prometheus thing here, but I can't figure out where that would have been. And I was trying to correlate that to Star Wars, so it's gone. But
You're having a drink with them, Prime Factors.
a drink with
Yes.
Seska. As I said, I really was intrigued by her in this episode, and I liked her fire, and yeah, I wasn't mad at her. Oh, I did have one more note. Sorry, when they give Janeway the pecan pie, and I think one of them says it's exquisite, and I'm like, yeah, it is. And I know pecan pie is not for everyone, but for me, pecan pie is exquisite. Okay.
That's great.
That's my one other note.
I do enjoy that.
I do too.
My drink is with the weather girl, Yadana.
Oh.
Because
Sure.
unlike Kim, I would have enjoyed our little evening
Mhm.
tryst out under the two suns.
I went Janeway because just she needs it after all that.
Yeah.
Getting
And she's going to need a new best friend since Tuvok betrayed her.
right and getting Harry Kim blocked on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right.
that's true.
Her disappointment was palpable in that moment. Like, Kim, oh, what do you want? Go away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who was your annoyance?
I liked him actually, but he was still a little annoying. I wrote down Euro who, but Gath.
Gatharel?
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to go with as well. I liked him until we found out just what a selfish douche he was, and then he became insufferable. And then I really did not like him after that. So
I went with Seska for this one, annoyance, because just like it was, everyone was getting along early on, everything was going good, and then she just instantly, effortlessly slipped right back into, yeah, but it's us, the Maquis, like, yo, chill, come on.
Yeah,
I wanted to say things, but I'm biting my tongue.
I appreciate that because I think maybe her malevolence is what I appreciate.
Oh, you'll get plenty more of that too.
Oh, good. I can't.
Yeah, I had initially had Seska and I crossed her off, and it was because she seemed to be the one pushing the cover up, pushing the bad stuff a little more.
Uh-huh.
And then I also considered Paris just because it felt so out of character for him to be like, follow the rules, everybody. And I'm like, that's not Paris. But anyway.
Do you think they couldn't have Tom Paris in there because he couldn't be in a cover-up conversation without them being like, hey, you did this before. How does this work?
Right? Like, yeah, let's go to the criminal for advice.
Yeah.
Makes so much sense.
What did you do wrong when you tried to cover it up? Because we don't want to do that. Yeah.
I don't want to take away from Tuvok because we want.
Yeah.
I don't want to take anything away from Tuvok in this episode. But an alternate way they could have gone with this was Paris keeps telling them, "Oh, you got to be good. You got to be good." Like have him in more, saying that more, and then the transporter in Paris walks in. He's like, "Tuvok sent me. This was part of the cover up the whole time to throw off the set. They had me the device." That would have been kind of fun if Tuvok was a minor character and not one we wanted to see grow and develop.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, Paris is wasted this episode. Like, there was... The Delaney sisters convo was great. Having him
Right.
there arguing for the rules was a waste of his character. He shouldn't
Yeah,
have been
I
in that
agree.
scene. Shouldn't have been. Who was your inspiring character of the week?
I
think
mentioned
Stephen
earlier
already said
Tuvok.
Janeway. Oh,
I thought
Tuvok.
Tuvok coming forward, and just his thought of like, well, our priority. Oh, now I'm coming back. Okay, I got it. Now I have the Alien Prometheus thing.
Okay.
So when he says, and actually I wrote down, it's the wrong one. It's not even Alien Prometheus. It's the new Alien, or maybe it's all the Alien movies. But maybe spoiler alert for the most recent Alien. But anyway, so when he's like, well, his prime directive was, he knew that her prime directive was, I want to get everyone home. And so that's what was driving him. And so in the most recent Alien movie, and this isn't a complete giveaway, I hope not, but I recommend it. The latest one's actually, it's fun. It's not awesome, but it's good. So some great action, and a good cast, and more world building. Anyway, different podcast. But anyway, but within that, there's yet another alien, not the ectomorphs, but the Ash from the original, and Michael Fassbender from Alien Prometheus, which is how we got there. But the alien in this movie, his whole programming is, you got to protect the woman, or the woman that he's been. The guy that programmed him, he said his thing was like, you have to take care of my daughter, keep her out of harm. And then the company, if you're familiar with the company from those Alien movies, somebody from there kind of reprograms him to, your number one priority is to, it changes his priority. And it's not exactly the same. Vulcans aren't robots and all that stuff, but it made me think of that, which also made me think of, go all the way back to Star Wars when programming got changed on different droids and that kind of stuff. But anyway, so that's where I was going with that. Anyway, I'm glad I found it. But that said, I was inspired by Tuvok. I like that that was his thought. And it's a very caring thought of like, I'm supporting you and I'm trying to help you achieve your objective, but I get that I went about it the wrong way and it undercut what you stand for and that kind of stuff. But yeah.
So Tuvok, I'm going to say that scene, because I could not decide between Janeway, Tuvok, and Torres in that scene. And that scene just inspired me. So that scene is my inspiring character, I guess.
It was a great scene.
I went Torres just because she actually kind of defied previous expectations and really, was like, you know what? No, we're not covering this up. And she even squashed her initial. She would have been, I feel like a couple episodes ago, she would have been the first one to be like, no, we're going to steal the technology, whatever it takes. But she was like, you know what? No, the captain, let's trust the captain and see what happens. At the very least, let's wait until the captain figures out if it's a yes or no, which, so.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what if this had been episode 2 of the series and we still had the conspiracy, Torres acting like you just said, Shane, and McCary with the sons, they were still competing to be chief engineer. And maybe he instigates the plot, but he decides he wants to cover it up and she doesn't, and that's why she gets chosen. That would be an interesting. There could have been different ways. I don't know. Maybe that's too much delay on that episode. Anyway, ranking the episode, I'm gonna say first just because of how great that end was, but argue with me. Tell me it's not first.
Yeah. Well, what's number 1 right now? It's
Eye of the Needle, where they talk to the Romulan.
Okay. Yeah.
Which was a really good episode.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this show is still finding its footing, but I feel like we've had 2 or 3. Well, even Emanations was pretty good. Ex Post Facto was pretty good. I'd say 5 of the 9 have been pretty darn good, but I'd say like 2 or 3 really strong ones already.
Yeah, I'd go. I'd give it that. Sure, maybe 1 less.
You go under Eye of the Needle?
Maybe.
What about Eye of the Needle makes it better?
Time travel.
The time travel aspect was cool. I think this, to me, after seeing the original series and Next Gen and watching what stands out best in those shows, I think that makes me more susceptible, and what we see in DS9, to leaning into a scene like this and making it elevate the whole episode, because those are hands down my favorite parts of Star Trek, is when there is no clear right or wrong and we get into the shades of gray stuff. So I dig the heck out of it. But I get Shane's fetishism for time travel. Well, he loves time travel so much.
Yeah.
But that's number 2.
And
so,
that one's
so
also playing with the we can get home, because they think about the beaming and all that. And I think I'd go above.
Okay, so this is number one.
I think I would.
Yeah, I think Eye of the Needle was super strong too, though. I'm not saying there's like a lot of daylight.
It was good. And actually, one of the Wikipedia critiques or whatever, the reaction section or whatever, reception, this episode has some of the most ambitious storytelling in season 1 of Star Trek Voyager, and I agree with that.
Yeah, I think I've seen all of season 1. Yeah, I have seen all of season 1, and I don't remember an episode that's gonna get.
And this one points again to our Gilligan's Island kind of. A lot of Voyager's first season explores how the crew will get back home, but one early episode explores the dramatic potential in a surprisingly tragic way, and I think that hits home as well.
Agreed. Well, next week we'll leave Shane behind in the Delta Quadrant while we head back to Deep Space Nine for Distant Voices. After being attacked in the infirmary, Dr. Bashir has a dual mystery on his hands. What has happened to the station while he was out, and why is he aging so rapidly now? And if you're not looking forward to how badly they do the aging makeup because Star Trek has a bad history of that, I don't blame you. I'm sorry to say this is not going to surprise you and delight you. It's going to be bad old age makeup. But until then, live long.
Because if we got 70,000 light years to go, it's going to be a long, strange trip. And prosper.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?